Or was it?
Well, I don't think it has changed enormously, although I came in the early 1930s, I mean around 1933, and at that time the street was hardly no puestos in the middle of the street, and it was more like an alley, and it's gradually been made better, if you want to say so, during the time. It's improved, and they spend money to improve it. It was the street at that time when I came, I found it enormously interesting. And I thought I was in heaven to find the street. It was Depression days. We didn't have no job. And I came down to Oliver Street. I wanted to be on a street like this because I always loved the Latin American music and arts and folklore. And actually when I fell in love with it was when I came from Italy on a ship that moved very slowly, and we stopped on many Central American seaports and even Ecuador. And all those impressions remained with me. And when I came, about the time that I came to Oliver Street, I also got interested, studied by myself about the Incas, the Aztecs, and the Maya, and I thought that the civilization was enormously beautiful.
For people that have never, maybe people who've never been to Los Angeles who don't know about Olvera Street, why don't you describe what it was, what is Olvera Street, particularly in the 30s when you know, what is this place?
In the 30s, it was something like Greenwich Village. I mean, in thoughts, or either like Paris. It has a concentration of all the talents that you could put together. The motion picture was at its high peaks at that time. And all the movie stars, all the directors, I met many, and all the producers and writers, and everybody interested in, I mean, involved in the motion picture industry of those days were coming down here at night, and this was, and then the place, when it began, they wanted to make Olvera Street, they wanted to save it from oblivion, dying away, and they kind of helped out to rebuild these houses, the Casa Adobe, which was the first house in Los Angeles, built, I believe, in 1818.
What was it like before it became Olvera Street? What is the importance of this area for the city of Los Angeles?
The importance of the idea was they wanted to, they felt that the movement of our society was moving to mechanization and to industry, you know, and they felt that if they preserved Olvera Street as a place of the past where they can relive the romanticism of early California when the missionary came with the Spaniards, and then relived the rancho days, the adobe days, and they tried to relive it with their attitude and their enthusiasm, and it was almost a theater in a way. They had the puppeteer from the 1930, 1940. Fortunately, there's a gentleman that I can't recall his name, but he's got the collection of all these puppeteers that lived in all that began here, began right on the street, and among the first one was the Yale puppeteer, and then they moved to Hollywood, and they became very famous there because they had the show running for many years. without interruption, and it was always full, you know what I mean?
Was it a real community where people lived, or was it a place that tourists came to?
Some of them lived in this very place here, in the Sepulveda, and but they lived around here, and they came here to visit. But the artists lived in the vicinity of here, and there was enormous amount of talent. Besides the puppeteer, Mrs. Sterling and Harry Chandler, who is the Times president, whatever, publisher, he was enthused, and by having the paper, stimulating the interest, they were able to collect money and have people voting for the reconstruction of this. I kind of lost the idea of my...
We're asking about it. Did the artists live in this area?
They lived around here.
Yeah.
And so Miss Sterling and other ones, idealists that were involved in the project, even Miss Bonzo of the Galandrina restaurant, she's very influential in those days.
Well, let's talk about who these people are, for example. Who was Mrs. Sterling?
Mrs. Sterling was, she was probably the first one to conceive the idea. And then she went to Harry Chandler at the Times and she told him. And he agreed, and he says, this is a fine idea. And they began to draw out the plans of it, the main structure, like the adobe house, the Galandrina, and the Arconti building, and a lot of other. And then later they involved the Placita, the Pico House, and the theater, and the first theater in Los Angeles, the Merced Theater. And so there was money involved in it. And then in 1950 or so, the Heritage Board made it a historical monument in Los Angeles Park. It came under the recreation of Los Angeles Park.
Now, when you were doing here as an artist, what were you doing here? What did you do when you came?
Well, I did pictures of people with a charcoal, and I just barely made the living, and I couldn't pay. You know, there's dues to pay, and Miss Sterling wanted to get rid of me. But I told him, we're not making, my wife was with me, we're just not making nothing. And so Miss Palufo, who was the lady in charge of the El Paseos, I guess she liked me. I was drawing people with the charcoal. I had charcoal all over my face. And she said, Leo, you can stay. You don't have to pay the rent. And I'll try to talk to Miss Sterling. And we hadn't gone to it. But I got tired of doing portraits because I felt that the people wanted me to do pictures that looked like them, plus being flattered, you see. So I felt that I wasn't an artist no more. I was just a retoucher in the photograph place. So I started doing little pictures, and I put them on the table, and I was selling them for 10 cents a piece. At that time, I was so enthused about the street, you know, the dancers and the children running up and down the street. And so I created characters, and then I remembered some scenes from Central America, and then I started making little pictures that had this feeling of Oliver Street. So the people that came to visit on the street, they bought them. And then I began to work as an artist, making larger pictures. And I was lucky enough to sell them too. But the first pictures I was selling 10 cents a piece, 3 for 25 cents. But business started going up. And I started then becoming a businessman. When I sold the pictures for 50 cents, then they were still selling, so I sold them for 75. But I never went any higher than 150. And some of the picture that I sold for 150, my son happened to see him. He bought here and there, And there were the date that he was born, I think 1943 or 1944. So he bought them all, but he had to spend $150 and $175 each. Yeah.
Tell us about it. Get us a sense of what your typical day when you were an artist down here. What time would you start? Who were the people you talked to? Who were the people who you were friends here in Alvaro Street? Give us a feeling what it was like.
Well, I was very much interested in art, and I was so grateful that I was able to just pull along, you know. And then these, a lot of these, like Preston Sturges, when he was famous, as I guess he died now. He was a playwright, and he was working for the motion picture. One night he came and bought all the pictures that I was hanged on the wall.
Hold on a second. I want to tell the story again. How is this?
Oh, I met, if you ask me if I met a lot of artists, yeah, a lot of good ones, a lot of great talents. I met actors like John Garfield, who was a close friend of mine. And I kind of felt bad for him because he had a sad ending, you see what I mean? And he was very idealistic, besides being a good actor.
Well, tell me about your friendship with John Garfield. How did you first meet him, and what kind of person was he?
He was a humble person. The funny part, when he liked to talk to me, I don't know why. So I got acquainted with him, and I actually never went to picture show at that time, and I never knew who he was. And he finally, somehow I find out, you see, that he was John Carter. But we used to talk about the world in general. And he had a tendency of being more liberal and more than I was, you see what I mean? And though I never did agree. I don't disagree with any forms of people thinking the way they want to, you see, but I'm more of a sentimentalist. I'm more of a one that believed that the world should be improved and through love, through understanding, through patience, and
where did you set up your stand? Where was it located on the street?
the stand was when I did the charcoals. It was in front of the El Paseo Cafe. That's where I would draw the people, and I guess I was either funny or something. They came around, and I remember Rosemary Ames. She was an English actress, and one night she started imitating me. With all charcoal on my face, you know what I mean? I never knew I was that funny. So I got acquainted with her, and she told me, Leo, I wish you would do some work for me. And I says, what? I'd do it. And she says, I go to the Adobe house all the time, and there's a huge fireplace. They took it away now. They remodeled the place. They did a good job in remodeling, but that fireplace kind of killed me that they took it away, you know, because Baker photographed it, you know what I mean? I did pictures for Rosemary Ames, but she says I like to sit there and when the fire's on and just meditate and pray, and it's just like going to a church and relaxing.
Who was the owner of the El Paseo restaurant?
It was Miss Palufo. And
Talk to me about her. Who was she?
well, she moved from the El Paseo, and she opened the Caliente Cafe. And well, she was what kind of a woman? She was the type of woman like Miss Bonzo, but only that she was a astute businesswoman. But she was good, you know what I mean? She tried her best to do good food and to employ talent, you know, to entertain. There was a lot of movie stars going down there, including Clark Gable and Carol Lombard when they were, you know, romancing. I made pictures of them. He didn't like them.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
I did sketches of him. I could see him. There's a little window where you could see him sitting at the table. So I used to give it to him. He didn't like him.
How did you attract people? Just by the fact you were there, or did you talk to people? How did you attract them to your work?
Well, I attracted a lot of people. I attracted, there was one of the famous dancers that had a troupe of dancers that were at that time modern, that he was known. I don't even remember the name. And until he died, I didn't know he was the director. He was a creative man, you know, real creative. And he used to be interested in listening to me talk, you know what I mean? And I studied art in Italy in an interesting university. And it was a royal palace, you know, and a lot of experience and a lot of luck that I had in my earlier life.
What were you talking about when you were talking with these people? Did you carry on conversation with people as they passed by?
Yeah.
What would you be talking about?
Well, they would ask me about art, and I would try to explain to them why I did so and so, because sometimes they're so used to conservative and pretty things that they already build themselves, you know, a taste, you know. So if the picture is a little bit crude, you know what I mean. I used to make sculptures then too, and I carved them in wood. And sometime when my wife and I passed by an old house that they were tearing down, I'd pick up one of the pieces of wood and then start carving it with a knife, sharp knife down. And cold nights, sometimes I just carved it, and it took me a week to make one. And if I found a big chunk, I would make a mother and child, carve a mother and child. I didn't sell many of those because they took too long to make. I did, there was a little girl bathing, and that was Lupita, inside of a bathtub I did. And well, I can't remember his name, the director bought it. And I don't know, he paid me like $10 for it. But anyway, I had a cap on my head then. I used to wear a cap, you know, like French artists. And he says, Leo, I'd like to, he bought other pictures of mine. He directed the pictures I can't remember his name. I should have wrote it down so I could. But he told me, Leo, I'd like to use you as an artist on the street. We're making a picture of Greenwood Village with Robinson, you know, and Don Dury was the main actor. And the next morning I said, yeah, I'll be an artist. I said, but I didn't have to do much, you know. I just said, I was on the floor sketching, and I happened to sketch Don Dury's girlfriend. I don't know, I had a package of popcorn or something. But a silly thing that it just lasts me just about a minute, a few minutes, that you could hardly see me with a parade sketching, you know. And he came he sent a chauffeur with one of those beautiful cars, and they paid me $100 for that. So I got $100 for about a minute, and the carving I sold to him, it took me a week to do. I got about $10, maybe less, because I didn't charge much.
Did you ever go and see your movie star career? Did you ever go to the movies and see the movie you were in?
Yeah, I went to see it. And then I told people, I said, look at it fast because I won't stay too long. But it was fun, you know. I saw how they made movies and stuff.
Do you remember the name of the movie?
Yeah, Scarlet Street. Scarlet Street.
Where did they shoot it?
It was, they shot at Universal, and the director was Lang.
Fritz Lang?
Huh?
Fritz Lang?
Fritz Lang.
Oh, he's a very good director.
Yeah, very good director. He directed Wasn't he a dance director first?
I don't think so.
No.
He came from
But he had a lot of those pictures with dancing in it, didn't he?
Well, there was Busby Berkeley who did that.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
Uh,
But he was a great director. He was known then, yeah.
Now, who were the people who were living here in Olvera Street that you knew who were friends of yours?
Friends of mine, we had some friends that after we closed up, we used to walk home. We used to go home maybe at midnight and walk on the streets where we lived up Temple Street, where actually we lived in a gingerbread house, not very famous one, but a modest one, and we up on Bunker Hill, where the what do you call it, music center is, the corner of Grand Avenue and I think it's First Street going down, and that's where and then there was a row of houses going down in Grand Avenue that went to Temple Street. You see, the streets came in and then they went up on the hill again. And, well, they slanted down, not that much. And all the row of houses, they were modest houses then. All Bunker Hill was not gingerbread, was not Victorian and rich. They had their first ones that were built there that were gorgeous ones. And that's where I got interested in painting them, because I was watching them coming down one by one, and I kind of came away from my other books that I did of children.
We're going to go and talk about that. I want to go back again to Olvera Street.
To Olvera Street, well, yeah.
There was no freeway that went through here, right? So it was
No, there was no freeway. The Hollywood
What was the
freeway.
neighborhood like when you were here before the freeway was like?
Well, it was more of a known section. It was the tail end of the old Los Angeles, you see. Actually, Los Angeles, it was after the Bunker Hill was torn down that it became a metropolis, that all these, but before that, the City Hall, the White City Hall, was like the highest building in Los Angeles. And so in the book that I made of Pedro the Angel of Olvera Street, I have all the scenes of the Los Angeles of those days, but in a very simple way, because I had to do it very simple because it was a child book.